What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. We've got a super duper jam-packed show today, as we had a lot of 5-set matches going on, such as Missouri and LSU. Did the Tigers beat the Tigers? Or should I say, did Mizzo take down the LSU Tigers, or did the other Tigers, the LSU Tigers, catch the Mizzo Tigers by the toe? And we had a couple upsets going on, as Oregon, the Young Ducks, upset the number 18 UCLA Bruins. How'd the Ducks do it, and what went wrong with the Bruins? Also, we had South Dakota, I believe it was South Dakota, upsetting number 4 Creighton, or 14 Creighton, in 5 sets on set. I believe it was Saturday or Friday. Either way, it was a huge win for South Dakota, beating Creighton, which was number 14. Were they able to get 2 upsets for the price of 1? We'll see. And then we also had Washington going on the ropes against Arizona. Did the Huskies outlast the Wildcats? And in men's volleyball, we also had NJIT going 5 sets with Lewis as well. Were they successful? All that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. It's great to be here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon, or wherever you are listening from. And I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope everyone is happy and healthy and doing well despite all these tough times. And hopefully you all are doing well as we are going through tough times. We're still in somewhat of a pandemic. We're almost approaching the 1-year anniversary of this pandemic. Gee, many Christmas. But I will say this, we will get through this together. You just gotta do your part and don't be an idiot. So before we get into some volleyball action, we actually have some sponsors I need to go through. Just gotta get some housekeeping out of the way. Our first sponsor is Legacy Financial. Last year was a tough year, and it looks like 2021 might be going down that same path. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're in a financial struggle at the moment, Legacy Financial is here for you. If you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, give Andrew and Io a call. Also, if you're looking for an opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money, give Io a call at 510-928-2104. Once again, that phone number is 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Io and her husband Andrew are just 2 people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut, and you can follow them on Instagram at Sims_uncut. Our second sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Mom is Always Right Media. Are you feeling overwhelmed with schoolwork? Those essays keeping you up at night? Don't lose sleep. Just pick up the phone. Mom is Always Right Writing Agency will always give you quality essays, and they will always make their deadlines. Sleep soundly knowing that they are on the job. For more information, call 626-653-3649. Once again, the number is 626-653-3649 to book your appointment today. And in addition to Mom is Always Right Media, they have their own podcast called It Goes Down in the PM. Make sure you check out the new episode of It Goes Down in the PM, brought to you by Mom is Always Right Media, where they will help you open your business from start to finish. And another podcast that's tied into Mom is Always Right Media is Coffee After Dark. Don't miss the next chapter of your favorite love story. Check out the Season 2 premiere of Coffee After Dark, brought to you by Mom is Always Right Media, where we will help you open your business from start to finish. And then our last sponsor for IE Sports Radio is the Sports Rundown. Are you a fan of sports, but you have too much going on in your life to keep up with the 24/7 sports news cycle? Or maybe you are new to sports and you want to understand all the sports concepts better? If so, then the Sports Rundown is for you. They are a new podcast that gives you a basic professional and collegiate sports news, stats, tidbits, and fun facts by the time you get to work, start your second cup of coffee, or finish walking the dog. Enough information to make you knowledgeable and dangerous while talking about current sporting events, and they will teach you something along the way, such as mascots, uniforms, history, feel-good stories, and sports rules. They even cover the Premier League, which is a soccer league. New episodes drop every Monday and Friday mornings, so come give them a listen. And you can also follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter, at IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram. And you could also look up IE Sports Radio on Facebook by going to the search bar and typing in IE Sports Radio. And the website for IE Sports Radio is www.iesportsradio.com. So there's all the housekeeping out of the way. So now let's get on into the volleyball action. So we're going to go with the women's volleyball first. So I talked about all the 5-set matchups that went on this past weekend. Let's talk about this matchup that probably caught my eye and maybe might have caught the eye of some of these other volleyball fans. Wisconsin at Illinois. So this was actually the second matchup between Wisconsin and Illinois. The first matchup, Wisconsin swept Illinois. That was to be expected. No one pretty much had Illinois winning against Wisconsin. Number 1 Wisconsin, might I add. Everyone who wasn't an Illinois fan basically was picking Wisconsin. So the first set, Wisconsin actually had trouble taking down Illinois as it was tight throughout most of the. It was actually Wisconsin leading most of the way, and then Illinois crept up and attempted to tie it, and they actually went past 25, but Wisconsin took the first set 27-25. There were 7 ties and 2 lead changes. Gotta give credit to Illinois. They actually showed up quite well. And then the second set wasn't really all. It didn't go the full way that Wisconsin wanted, but they got the job done. They never trailed. There were 3 ties, and Wisconsin won the second set 25-20. And everyone's thinking, this is gonna be another sweep, right? Wrong. Illinois actually took the third set 25-21, and apparently there were multiple lead changes. According to the box score, there were 265 lead changes, which is completely false. There must have been some of those happy fingers that might have accidentally mispressed a button or something like that. Either way, there was not 265 lead changes, but it was impressive to see Illinois actually take that first set off of Wisconsin. I thought it was going to come later against teams like Penn State or Minnesota or Nebraska, but I give credit to Illinois. They took that third set quite nicely. Wasn't the prettiest, but it wasn't the worst. But then set 4 was just all Wisconsin, as there were actually 11 lead changes. I don't know if that's right, considering after seeing that third set lead change stat, but either way, Wisconsin took set 4 25-12 quite convincingly, and that was that Wisconsin beat Illinois 3-1, and they are 4-0 on the season, which was to be expected. Illinois drops to 2-2, which is obvious because you're facing the number 1 team in the nation. The fact that they even took a set off them is actually quite astounding. So I tip my hat to Illinois, but almost doesn't count in volleyball. All right, so the next match for Wisconsin is a matchup against Rutgers, which actually just picked up their first win of the season against Indiana, which that's actually good. I'm actually quite happy for Rutgers, because I was fearing that Rutgers was actually going to. I don't want to say this in a derogatory way, but I was fearing that Rutgers was actually going to go winless this year, because Rutgers doesn't have the greatest program in the Big Ten when it comes to women's volleyball. So there's a thing right there. And then, so yeah, Wisconsin's next game is against Rutgers. As for Illinois, their next matchup is against Northwestern. However, actually no, their next matchup is against Penn State. However, Penn State is actually has their program on hold because of a little COVID outbreak, which really sucks. I really want to see Penn State. I really wanted to see Penn State against Ohio State, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. So, as for the Wisconsin-Illinois stats, Wisconsin was led by Grace Loberg, who had 14 kills, 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .297. I believe Grace Loberg is one of their underclassmen, if I'm not mistaken. I think she also plays middle blocker as well, so good stuff for her. As we say hello to Larry B in the chat room, thank you for tuning in. As the second kill leader for Wisconsin in the match against Illinois was Molly Haggerty, who had 11 kills, 2 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .409. Dana Redke had 10 kills, 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .292. And that's the unique. And also, got to make note of Danielle Hart having 9 kills, only 1 hitting error, and 18 swings for a hitting percentage of .444. Which that's what makes Wisconsin a very deadly team. Wisconsin can obviously be carried by Dana Redke, but when they get other hitters involved, it makes the Badgers a much better team. In terms of assists, Sydney Hilly had 42 assists and 2 kills. While in terms of service aces, the team had 5 service aces. They missed 11 serves. Don't think it ultimately mattered, but it is what it is. And Larry says football and volleyball, that's Wisconsin. Yeah, I totally agree. They're also pretty decent in volleyball, and excuse my voice for cracking. I digress. In terms of blocks, Wisconsin had 8 blocks. 1 was a solo stuff, 14 were block assists and all that. And they had 47 digs. As for Illinois, they were led by Megan Cooney, who had 18 kills, 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .366. Bruna Vrankovic had 10 kills, 6 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .148. That was their only 2 hitting errors, or that was their only double-digit kill leaders, as the next kill leader was Kennedy Collins, who had 8 kills, 1 hitting error for a hitting percentage of .583 off of 12 swings. So there was that. As for Illinois' assists, they actually ran a 6-2 offense. They had 2 setters. They had Diana Brown with 24 assists, and they had Kylie Bruder have 11 assists. So that's pretty cool. They ran a 6-2 offense. I guess that was to throw off Wisconsin. Maybe they ran a 5-1 offense against Iowa in week 1, and then in week 2 they decided to switch it up to 6-2 to throw Wisconsin off kilter, which it might have worked, but you never know. As for service aces, Illinois had 7 aces and 10 service errors. In terms of blocks, they had a grand total of 7 blocks with 1 solo stuff and 12 block assists. In terms of digs, they had 47 digs. They were led by Taylor Cooper, who had 15 digs, while Diana Brown had 12 digs to give her the double-double. As for Wisconsin's digs, they were led by Lauren Barnes, who had 20 digs, and that was actually their only double-digit dig leader, as the next highest one had 7 digs, and that was Sydney Hilly and Grace Loberg. And as for hitting percentage, Wisconsin hit .333, while Illinois hit .202, which wasn't all that surprising, but in the third set, I will say this, Wisconsin did not have their best hitting performance, as they only hit .182, but they only had 9 kills, so I guess Illinois had their backs against the wall, and they pretty much had to do what they needed to do in order to pull out the upset. At that point, you have nothing to lose, so I kind of applaud Illinois for getting a set off of Wisconsin. That's not easy to do. Kudos. But that's pretty much that for that matchup. So the next matchup we got to go to, and I am so glad Larry B and Marcus just popped in the chat room. Larry B and Marcus is here because the next noteworthy matchup that I got to talk about is USC at Oregon State. So here's the thing about USC. This was actually their first series this weekend. They were supposed to play Stanford a couple weeks ago, but their matchup against Stanford got canceled. Notice the words canceled and not postponed. They're not going to make it up, which really sucks for USC because that could actually hurt them going forward. So the first matchup between USC and Oregon State. So USC took the first set 25-18. To me, I expected pretty much a dominating effort from SC. And I actually didn't see the match, but I did see that USC took the first set 25-18. I'm like, okay, this is exactly what I expected. You know what I didn't expect was USC laying the biggest egg in set 2. Oregon State won set 2 25-22, and I'm like, really? Okay, keep in mind, I'm not trying to bash Oregon State here, but Oregon State was actually picked to finish last in the Pac-12 from what I saw. So third set was actually quite crucial for USC and Oregon State. It was a back and forth. It was back and forth throughout the entire set, and I believe it was tied at 23 apiece at one point, and then USC saved a match point after Oregon went up 24-23. But unfortunately, Oregon State won set 3 26-24 to take a 2-1 lead in the match. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, no. USC, you can't be doing this. What are you doing, USC? And then unfortunately in set 4, yes, Larry says wow. You have every right to say wow, because in set 4, losing set 3 was the worst thing to happen for USC, because set 4, it looked like USC just had the wind taken out of their sails, because Oregon was just dominant in that set, as they took set 4 25-12, winning the match in 4 sets, which actually snapped a 9-game winning streak over the Beavers. And I was like, really? I mean, that's good for Oregon State. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a USC homer here, but that's embarrassing for USC. Like, you can't lose to a team that you're supposed to beat. Like, do you know? Like, here's the. Yeah. Larry says 25-12. Yes, that's just how. Now we can obviously point the finger and say, oh, USC was bad, but USC actually has a young team. They lost Kalia Lanier to graduation. They lost Jasmine Gross to graduation. They lost a bunch of players to graduation. And this was actually USC's first, like I said, it was their first series of the season. And we can't really expect a miracle to come out of this, because I knew there was going to be some rust with USC, because they also have a new head coach with Brad Keller, but I didn't expect him to struggle that much. And I also didn't expect USC to start a freshman libero. And I'm like, oh, no wonder USC struggled. They had a freshman libero. It's like, you had to throw in a freshman libero? Like, what are you doing, Brad? Oh, no. Yeah, and Larry says we miss Bricio. Well, not just Bricio, not just Sammy Bricio. Kalia Lanier was a beast last year. She was a program changer. She is actually second all-time in kills behind Sammy Bricio. And yeah, that freshman libero, I get maybe she had like pregame jitters, but you're facing Oregon State. Like, you got to throw those pregame jitters out the window. But I digress. So, looking at the stats, we'll start with Oregon State first. Here's the thing about Oregon State, though. They only had one player in double digits in terms of kills, and that was Katerina Kachenko, who had 15 kills, 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .324. And other than that, the next highest kill leader had 8 kills, and that was Aaliyah McDonald, who had 8 kills, 2 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .353. So, there's that. Izzy Sosluski had 31 assists, and she chipped in 13 digs. Grace Massey had 15 digs. Something I actually kind of need to make note of is that Oregon State had 8 service aces. Now, I will get into USC's service aces, but that actually wasn't what decided the match. Like, Oregon State, you'll see what I'm talking about. But in terms of digs, Oregon had 48 digs on the night. However, Oregon State had a grand total of 11 blocks that match. And it's like, oh, God. And when I saw that stuff, I'm like, no way USC could win when that defense is locking them up. So, Oregon State just had a better plan of attack defensively. And Oregon State hit .272, so In terms of USC stats, they were led by Kaylin Owens, who had 17 kills. She did have 8 hitting errors, but she had a hitting percentage of .281. Brooke Botkin, who's going to be their main offensive weapon, had 12 kills, 5 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .206. Amelia Wesk had 10 kills. She did have 7 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .091, which is not really that great. Raquel Lazaro had 39 assists, and she chipped in 3 kills. USC also had 8 service aces, but they had 15 service errors. And when I looked at that stat, I was like, yeah, and USC wasn't going to win with 15 service errors. Now, this next stat is going to blow everyone away. So get ready, everybody. Everybody, listen to this. USC had a whopping, drumroll please, USC had a whopping 3 blocks on the night. Yes, USC had 3 blocks. Only 3. Not 3 blocks in a set. 3 blocks in the whole match. None of them were solo stuffs. All of them were block assists. USC only totaled 3 blocks. And I'm looking at that stat. I'm like, this can't be right. USC cannot have 3 blocks and expect to win. No. Yes, that was the reason why USC lost. It's like, I know USC doesn't have the tallest players in the world, but they certainly don't have the shortest. And then also USC hit only .206, which is pretty bad for USC, because I expect USC to hit in like the mid-200s. But especially with players like Owens, Wesk, and Botkin. Again, this was USC's first match, so we kind of need to give them a slight break. But I don't know, like, I can't really like let him off the hook that easily. Looking at the stats, you can't have that block. You can't have that block stat and expect to win. You can't miss 15 serves and expect to win. You can't hit .206 and expect to win. You're in the Pac-12. Any given night, you could lose. Like, you're not facing Stanford or Washington or Utah. You're facing Oregon State, for goodness sake. You can't lose to them. You were on a 9-game winning streak, and you have over 30 wins over them, and they don't even have as many wins against you as you do. Like, it's very sad, honestly. It's like, God, it must not have been USC's night. But USC actually did win the second matchup, which is awesome. So I basically, in a nutshell, USC just played better, and they pretty much let Oregon State have it. So USC's next matchup is against Oregon, which is actually perfect segue to go into the next matchup the next noteworthy matchup that happened this past weekend. That was UCLA at Oregon. This was actually the second matchup between UCLA and Oregon. UCLA took the first matchup against Oregon, but this time the second time between UCLA and Oregon went totally different. So the first set was actually pretty tight, as there were 14 ties and 5 lead changes, but Oregon just barely squeaked out the first set victory, 25-23. Then the second set, Oregon was in control for the most part in set 2. There were only 7 ties, 2 lead changes, but Oregon took set number 2, 25-22. There was a little scary part where UCLA was only down 22 to 21, but then Oregon just took the advantage and ran away with it. And then the third set, there was only 2 ties, 1 lead change. Oregon just dominated set 3. That was probably their best set they've played all year. They took the third set 25-19, sweeping away number 18 UCLA. I have been telling you all this. Oregon is a pretty good team. They do have a young team, and they're still trying to rebuild because they lost a lot of players to transferring to Hawaii, but I think this Oregon team is better than what most people expect they are. So, anyway, looking at the stats for Oregon in the second match, Oregon was led by Taylor Borup and Gloria Mutiri, who each had 11 kills. They both had hitting percentages over 400, which is darn right impressive. And Oregon as a team hit .310, which no wonder UCLA couldn't win, because when you're allowing your opponent to hit .310, no team can win with that. As for serves, Oregon had 3 service aces, missed 6 serves, no big deal. surprisingly, Oregon runs a 6-2 offense with Elise Ferreira and Kylie Robinson, who totaled 23 and 21 assists, which is pretty darn good. Oregon also had 50 digs on the night, being led by Brooke Nunaviller, who had 18 digs. She actually was the libero for Oregon in her freshman year, but she had to transition to outside hitter because of all the shortages and injuries in terms of the Oregon players. But I'm glad she's adapting well to her position. And then Oregon also had a grand total of 6 blocks, which is pretty cool. So Oregon definitely deserved that win. Now for UCLA, they were led by Mac May, who had 14 kills. She, like I said, she led the team with 14 kills, but she also had 10 hitting errors, which that is not going to get the job done. Like UCLA cannot expect Mac May to carry the team and put up 10 hitting errors to the point where she's not having her best game and to the point where they're going to lose to Oregon. Like, that's pretty bad if you ask me. So, I'm sorry, but Mac May obviously was good, but those 10 hitting errors and that 114 hitting percentage is completely bad. Sorry. And then Elon McCall, I think it's pronounced Elon McCall, had 7 kills, 4 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 148. Allison Jacobs had 7 kills, 1 hitting error for a hitting percentage of 273. They didn't get a whole lot of offensive production tonight, which is kind of the reason why UCLA lost. UCLA also ran a 6-2 offense as Kate Lane and Devin Chang and Kate Lane had 18 and 14 assists. Kate had 18 while Devin had 14 assists. And I knew UCLA ran a 6-2 offense. I've seen UCLA in action. Mike Sealy always runs a 6-2 offense when it comes to Devin Chang and another setter. That is why UCLA has won a national championship or 2 or 3 or however many they've won. But I'm pretty sure most of us don't care about UCLA. I'm kidding. As for aces, Oregon had 4 service aces and 4 service errors. UCLA had 47 digs on the night as Zoe Fleck had 14 digs while Devin Chang had 10 digs. And in terms of blocks, UCLA only had 2 blocks. So we're all laughing at USC, who had 3 blocks against Oregon State the first night. UCLA only put up 2 blocks. There's no way in heck UCLA couldn't beat Oregon with only 2 blocks. That's pathetic. And with the offensive output they had, it's any wonder UCLA lost. Also, UCLA hit 169 on the night, or on the day, because it was played in the afternoon. But either way, yeah, UCLA did not deserve to win. And more importantly, they got swept, which has everyone laughing. With them, not at them. So, like I said, Oregon plays USC this weekend, and UCLA, which is actually still ranked, surprisingly, plays Washington State this weekend, which I'll be talking about in a little bit as well. So, let's get on into another matchup, another noteworthy matchup. We actually have 2 more, and these are actually perfect. The last 2 noteworthy matchups we had on the women's side were South Dakota and Creighton. So the first matchup between South Dakota and Creighton, number 14 Creighton, might I add, actually was quite the doozy. So Creighton took the first 2 sets, 25-21, 25-19, and everyone's thinking, okay, Creighton's going to win. There's no way that South Dakota's going to come back, right? Wrong. South Dakota actually took the third set 25-23. There were actually 11 ties and 6 lead changes, while in set 4, South Dakota, which also had 7 ties and 7 ties and 1 lead change, took set 4 25-23, which was another close set, but South Dakota squeaked it out, and the 2 teams went 5 sets, which is like, okay. So in set 5, that actually featured 5 ties and 3 lead changes, but South Dakota was leading most of the way, and it looked like Creighton was going to come all the way back and snatch the victory from the jaws of defeat, but South Dakota closed the door on them and upset Creighton in 5 sets, which is absolutely funny. The entire world is dancing all over Creighton. It's not that funny because we like Creighton. Sometimes. Not all the time, but I digress. So anyway, in terms of South Dakota and their stats, they were led by Elizabeth Junke? Elizabeth Junke, who had 18 kills, 11 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 97. Good golly. You mean to tell me Creighton lost to that team? Wow. South Dakota also got contributions from Sammy Slaughter, who had 14 kills, or 2 hitting errors, and a hitting percentage of 308, which is actually pretty good. If it weren't for Slaughter, I guarantee you South Dakota would not beat Creighton. Madison Juergens had 38 assists, while Lolo Weideman had 7 assists. South Dakota had 5 service aces, but missed 15 serves altogether. The blocks is what really blew my mind, as South Dakota had a grand total of 17 blocks. That is how a team wins. Like, with defense like that, no wonder Creighton was unable to win. And then also, South Dakota had 92 digs, as they had 4 players reach double digits in digs. They had, like I said, 92 digs, and they were led by Lolo Weideman, who had 27 digs, while Juergens had 24 digs. Elizabeth Junke had 17 digs, and Brooklyn Bolweg had 13 digs. That is quite a huge amount of digs. And then also Amy Adams chipped in 9 digs as well, so gotta throw that in there as well. And as for Creighton, and before I go to Creighton stats, South Dakota actually hit 149. So everyone is probably wondering, why did South Dakota win when they only hit 149? Barf. So let's look at Creighton stats. Alright, Creighton stats. Everybody, prepare yourself. So Creighton was led by Jayla Zimmerman, who had 19 kills, 5 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 259. Kaylee Davis had 14 kills, but a whopping 11 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 0.56, which is absolutely pitiful. That's basically 5% right there. And their third leading kill leader was Erica Kostelak, who had 8 kills, 6 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of 67. They actually had a couple players hit, or 3 players hit in the negatives in terms of hitting percentages, which is a big reason why Creighton lost. In terms of assists, Creighton ran a 6-2 offense. Allie Van Ekeren had 29 assists, while Mahina Paua had 14 assists. In terms of aces, Creighton had 10 service aces but missed 10 serves, which I guess kind of offset. And yes, Larry B, I am in Pierre Moss territory, but this was I actually first thought of him when I saw the when I saw this matchup, and yes, I am in the Big East territory. So in terms of blocks for Creighton did not have a single solo stuff, but they had 20 block assists for a grand total of 10 blocks. And then in terms of digs, Creighton had 90 digs, which Grace Nelson had 26 of them. Ellie Bolton had 22 of them. Keely Davis had 19 of them, which gave her a double-double. And that was it in terms of double-digit digs. Also got to make note that Mahina Paua had 8 digs as well. Now, get ready for this. Get ready for this. So, we all thought South Dakota's hitting percentage was pretty abysmal. Creighton hit a whopping 109. The 14th ranked team hit 109 against South Dakota, a team that didn't even have a win to its name for the season. And they were at home, mind you, which I am actually quite flabbergasted at the fact that Creighton struggled. I don't know how. Like, I don't know if it was the time, if it was an afternoon match, but there's no excuse why Creighton should struggle. Like, Creighton is the heavy favorite to win the Big East Championship. But to only hit 109 against South Dakota? Oh my. Alright, so now the second match. Now let's get into the second match. So this actually had a nice little reversal of fate. So Remember how Creighton took the first sets against South Dakota in the first match? Well, South Dakota actually pulled out the reverse card and took the first two sets against Creighton, 25-18 and 26-24. Set 2 was very close. Actually had 16 ties and 8 lead changes. And everyone's thinking, "Oh my goodness, Creighton's going to lose again." And they're all laughing at Creighton and saying, "Ha ha 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 ha, stick to basketball." But Creighton said, "Nope," and took the third set 25-20. And the fourth set was actually quite tight, as there were 12 ties and 5 lead changes. However, Creighton took set 4 25-23, and in the fifth set, Creighton pulled out its 110% juice and drank it and won set 5 quite convincingly, 15-7, which, well, when you're the 14th ranked team and you're down 2-0, you really cannot afford to lose 2 in a row. Especially to a team that had 0 wins. Like, it's one thing for that to happen to Texas A&M, but it can't happen to Creighton. Like, good grief. Creighton was the heavy favorite to win this whole conference, and if they were to lose 2 in a row, that would have been very bad. So as for Creighton's stats, they were led by Keely Davis, who had 20 kills, 9 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .204. Jayla Zimmerman had 14 kills, 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .262. And Kiara Reinhardt had 8 kills, 2 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .375. In terms of assists, Ali Van Eckeren and Mahina Pa'ua had 30 and 21 assists respectively. Creighton had 10 service aces and only missed 8 serves, which is actually pretty good. And 3 of those aces came from Van Eckeren, Reinhardt, and Davis. And when those 3 are totaling service aces, that's when you know your serve game is looking pretty strong. In terms of blocks, Creighton only had 7 blocks, and in terms of digs, Creighton had 66 digs on the day. They were led by Ella Bolton, who had 21 digs, while Keely Davis had 17 digs, and Jayla Zimmerman had 13 digs. In terms of hitting percentage, Creighton only hit .225, which isn't bad, but certainly better than hitting .109. So that's pretty good right there. Now for South Dakota. So South Dakota was led by Elizabeth Junke, who had 23 kills, while Sammy Slaughter had 16 kills. Amy Adams had 8 kills. Junke had 6 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .279, while Slaughter had 4 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .308. Madison Juergens had 48 assists, while in terms of service aces, South Dakota had 7 aces, as opposed to 12 service errors. So service errors kind of caught up to them there. So in terms of blocks, South Dakota had 2 solo blocks and 10 block assists for a grand total of 7 blocks, which is basically the same as what Creighton had. And then also South Dakota had 66 digs, which they were led by Lola Weideman, who had 17 digs, while Elizabeth Junke had 12 digs, and Madison Juergens had 10 digs as well. And in terms of hitting percentage, I was surprised to see this. South Dakota hit .275, which is 50 more than Creighton, but they lost, which I don't know how South Dakota had that hitting percentage, but they didn't win. But one thing is certain, South Dakota cooled off. And it would have, but let's all be honest, it would have been really funny to see South Dakota pulling off 2 upsets against Creighton. I think everyone would have had a nice little laugh at that because reasons. It would be quite the amazing sight to see, because we had quite a bit of upsets, but not really in the upper echelon in terms of the upper portion of the NCAA rankings. So I think when it came down to it, Creighton said, "You know what? We are not losing twice to this team." So there's that. And that was all the note. There were also a lot of noteworthy matchups that went 5 sets. Missouri beat LSU twice in 5 sets. Washington beat Arizona in 5 sets in one of their matchups. The second match, I believe it was the second matchup. There were just so many matchups that went 5, and if I actually went through them, this would actually go an hour. But for the purposes of, I actually want to get to the previews for the women's volleyball matches and for the men's volleyball matches and for the beach volleyball preview, I kind of got to shorten the NCAA women's volleyball recap from this past weekend. But there were a lot of amazing matches, and there were like matchups that just blew my mind. Like there was even this little matchup. The Citadel beat the College of Charleston in 4 sets on Saturday. I believe it was Saturday. It was the 31st. No, it was Sunday. The Citadel beat College of Charleston in 4 sets, and it was their first win in 32 tries against their crosstown rival. So, good job to the Citadel for beating College of Charleston. Good for them. Let's give them the applause button. Okay, it's not that important. I mean, it's just the Citadel. I'm kidding. Larry says Cal Baptist just took the first set against Tarleton State 25-16. Good stuff. And I believe, and I also saw that Cal Baptist won the first matchup against Tarleton State yesterday. So good stuff from the Lady Lancers. And a matchup that actually happened last week was that Drake actually beat Northern Iowa last weekend, which snapped their 47-match losing streak, which dated 24 years back, which is quite amazing. I couldn't believe it. So I guess you could say Drake started from the bottom, and now they're here. I'll see myself out, so... Larry says that Cal Baptist also took the second set 25-21. Awesome. And that it's all tied up in set 3, 14-14. Thanks for keeping me updated on that, Larry. I really appreciate that. So I'm glad to see. I'm hoping that Cal Baptist is able to do big things. And I also want to see how they'll do in the WAC tournament. I think I am 100% certain they will make the top 8 of the WAC tournament. And how they made the... finished in the top 8 last year, but they couldn't play in the WAC tournament was whack, because unfortunately NCAA rules. But I'm not going to get into that. So yeah, there were a lot of noteworthy matchups last week, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But I will say this was one of the better weeks in volleyball. The only thing that would have been better is if we had seen a top 5 upset. But we're not going to look that far ahead. One thing I will also note before I take a break is that Ohio State is 4-0, which is awesome sauce. And I'm so happy that... And I'm happy because our host, Andrew Hagenbaugh, is actually into Ohio State women's volleyball now. I've kind of got him on the volleyball train. But it's a really good thing that Ohio State women's volleyball is 4-0 in Big Ten conference play. And I'll break down the pros and cons of their 4-0 record. So, pros. The pros of their 4-0 record is that they have not lost a game. And in a very competitive conference such as the Big Ten, you need all the wins you can get because because this year is going to be very tough to make the NCAA tournament. There's only 18 at-large spots and 30 automatic qualifiers, because the tournament field is now a 48 tournament field instead of a 64 tournament field. So, once again, 30 automatic qualifiers, which also excludes the Big West Conference and the Ivy League, which have opted out of fall sports play, which includes women's volleyball, which really sucks. But I digress. So 48 tournament field, and every team is going to need to pull out all the stops, and going to be they're going to need to do everything they can in order to win games and to take that next step to pull the upset. So it's basically a don't get eliminated thing. It's basically a dog eat dog world out there. You got to do your part in order to win games, because Even the teams that in the non-Power 5 conferences might miss the postseason. You look at Coastal Carolina, maybe Pepperdine, BYU / San Diego. Marquette, possibly St. John's, Creighton, which all those other teams that could miss the NCAA tournament because there weren't enough at-large spots. So, and then not even the Pac-12 will be able to take too many teams. Like the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, not even those conferences are going to be taking a whole lot of teams. But, and I talked about this last week with Emily about it, that this is basically war when it comes to all these conferences. Like every conference game is precious now. So you either win and take your baby steps toward the conference championship, or you lose and you take a giant step back of possibly making the NCAA tournament. So there's that. So yeah, back to Ohio State women's volleyball. They're 4-0, and that's a good thing. They're 4-0 and they're undefeated. So that's the pros. And another pro for Ohio State women's volleyball is that their next matchup is actually quite the favorable one, as Ohio State is slated to play Iowa this week. And I believe they're going to be playing Iowa because last week they were actually originally supposed to play Penn State, but because of Penn State's COVID outbreak and Michigan's COVID outbreak, Ohio State and Michigan State agreed to play one another, and it worked out perfectly for Ohio State as they faced one another. And Larry B says both men's and women's volleyball is awesome. I agree, my man. And he says OH, and I say IO. So that's the pros. So yeah, for Ohio State, they actually have a bye this week, so they don't have any matches. Their next matchup is against Iowa, and it's going to be back at Ohio State, and then their next matchup after that is against Illinois and then Rutgers. So they've actually got quite the good schedule. So that like I said, that's the pros of for Ohio State women's volleyball. They're undefeated and they've got a pretty good schedule going forward. Now, the cons of Ohio State women's volleyball is that all 4 of their wins are against teams that have not registered a single win yet. Maryland has not won a game this year, and neither has Michigan State. I'm not trying to bag on Ohio State now, but I will say this. Ohio State isn't going to be making the top 25 anytime soon. But it's still impressive that Ohio State is still undefeated. And then another negative about Ohio State's 4-0 record is that 3 of those 4 wins had to go 5 sets. And if you're somewhat of an Ohio State fan, if you're a passionate Ohio State fan or a passionate Ohio State women's volleyball fan, you kind of have to wonder, when will Ohio State deliver a convincing victory over a quality opponent? Like, obviously they could go undefeated against subpar teams, but I don't think the NCAA would let that fly because obviously that's not going to be good for their strength of schedule. And you look at, and then after Ohio State plays Rutgers on February 27th, Ohio State's schedule starts to pick up as March 5th and 6th, Ohio State plays Minnesota. Then the week after that, they play Nebraska at Nebraska. And then they play Michigan. I think they could take Michigan, though, but Michigan's going to be tough. And then Purdue's going to be tough the week after. So Ohio State better be getting all these wins as much as they can, because I know they could beat Iowa. Iowa, I think, split their series. I'm not sure, but I think Iowa hasn't had too much good luck this year. I could see Ohio State beating Iowa. Illinois could be tough based on how tough of a series they gave Wisconsin, but for now, it's good. It's a good time to be an Ohio State women's volleyball fan. So. And then Rutgers just picked up its first win, so I expect Ohio State to win that. But I expect Ohio State to actually flex their muscle and prove to everyone that they belong in the top tier of the Big Ten, because otherwise the NCAA selection committee could look down and frown upon Ohio State's 5-set wins and say, this doesn't look like a good of an NCAA tournament team. But we'll see. Like, the NCAA tournament isn't until like April. So there's still plenty of time for Ohio State to prove themselves. And who knows, maybe Ohio State can actually schedule some matches in terms of non-conference. So we'll see. And then Larry says Tarleton State took set 3 against Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist is still up 2-1 against Tarleton State, and I hope Cal Baptist takes set 4 because no one wants to see set 5. So there's that. All right, so now we're going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, I'll be previewing the up-and-coming matchups for this week in terms of women's volleyball, and then I'll be talking about a little NCAA men's volleyball action, and then I'll be wrapping up with the preview of the beach volleyball season. So you're listening to Set Point right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on IE Sports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give ya what you want, here to give ya what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And you can catch that amazing show from my good friend, Mr. Marcus Losgreat. He will be going on at 7 p.m. tonight, and I hope you all definitely check out my friend Marcus Losgreat. He is an amazing person who's very passionate about boxing, MMA, combat sports, and all of that. And then also, earlier today, we had the Kansas City Shuffle going on as Dave Friedman, Ryan the Pez Quire-Davis, and Greg Petey Pablo spelt differently talked about the Kansas City Chiefs, and they previewed the Super Bowl and all that. But we're talking some volleyball here. So let's get on into the up-and-coming noteworthy matchups. So I actually picked out 3 noteworthy matchups, and they're all ranked against one another. But I actually picked two semi-noteworthy matchups. I picked 2 honorable mentions. So the first honorable mention matchup for this weekend to watch for. So the first one is actually between University of Missouri, Kansas City at Omaha. So Omaha split their their Summit League opener against Denver, while Kansas City, on the other hand, won both of their Summit League openers against North Dakota State, as the Roos actually took the first match against North Dakota State 3-2, and then they swept North Dakota State the second match 3-0. I said last week that Kansas City, I think, has potential. I'm not just saying that because of my colleagues at the Kansas City Shuffle. I think Kansas City might have something going on, and one thing to note about Kansas City is that they actually play well when they trail in sets, as it was seen in the first match against North Dakota State. Kansas City was actually down by as many as 9 in the first set, and I'm like, oh god, Kansas City's going to get hosed in this match. But then they actually took the first set 25-23, which is like, maybe this team actually is good. And then the second and third set went North Dakota State's way, but then Kansas City wound up winning set 4 and ultimately won set 5 in close fashion, winning the first match. And then the second matchup against North Dakota State, Kansas City trailed by as many as 5, but then wound up winning the first set 27-25. The same thing went on in the second set. They trailed by as many as 5, but wound up winning set 2 27-25. And then the third set, Kansas City had so much energy, and they all the momentum was on their side. They just dominated set 3 and won set 3 25-16, clinching the match. So Kansas City might actually have a good women's volleyball team this year, as they actually transitioned from the Western Athletic Conference to the Summit League, which is cool. And I'm also looking forward to when Kansas City plays Denver this year. That way we'll be able to have memes of Denver and Kansas City. But that's for another day. As for Omaha and Kansas City, I think that's going to be a great matchup. I think it's going to be Kansas City's first test, because Omaha last year won the Summit League, and I think it's going. I don't think that Omaha is going to go as easy as them as North Dakota State did, but I think Kansas City will at least. I think Kansas City can take at least one match off of Omaha. It's going to be at Omaha, so Kansas City is going to have is not going to have the luxury of playing at home, but I don't know about the home fans and whatnot. By the way, I actually do need to give a shout to Omaha, as they actually moved their game to an 11 a.m. start time. I believe that's 11 a.m. Central, or 11 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Central time, which is a convenience to the Kansas City women's volleyball team, because that'll still give them enough time to play their match and get ready for the Super Bowl. So I gotta give a little applause button to Omaha for being courteous to Kansas City and its women's volleyball team. All right, and that's the only one in the Summit League. So the only preview I'm going to give from the Summit League. So the second previewed match that I'm going to give that was my honorable mention, was Oregon at USC. So I'm not going to go too full detail on this, but I will say this: Oregon is 2-2, and I wouldn't say that this is a big test, but it's a big test for USC, because USC disappointed last week against Oregon State, and they need to have a big series against the Ducks this week, because if not, then they'll fall further and further behind the Pac-12, and they cannot afford to have too many of those losses in Pac-12 play, because like I said, the NCAA tournament is a 48-team field as opposed to a 64-team field the past few seasons. So unless USC can win the Pac-12, they're going to need to win as many games as possible, and they're going to have to do it with a young team, as USC only has one senior this year. They have one senior, 3 juniors, 7 sophomores, and 2 freshmen, so USC is on the young side. Meanwhile, for Oregon, they have 1 senior, 2 juniors, 8 sophomores, and 3 freshmen. So Oregon also has the work cut out for them. USC and Oregon actually used to be a couple of the dominant teams in the Pac-12 in terms of women's volleyball. But now they're kind of in a little bit of a rebuild stage. So, except Oregon has been rebuilding since last year because of all the transfers they lost to Hawaii. So, there's that. But I really want to see USC take both matches. I don't know how, but I'm going to take USC to win both matches against Oregon. Yes, I'm a homer, but I have this strange feeling. I think USC will put together its 2 best matchups against the Ducks. I think last week was just the scenario of the USC just not having any matches underneath their belt and being a little rusty. And also, again, they started a freshman libero. Like, of course she was going to have pregame jitters. Of course she wasn't going to do everything correct and whatnot. So, we'll see. I hope I'm right for USC's sake, but I don't think Oregon's going to take it anywhere easy on the Trojans. Alright, so now let's get into the actual matchups. The ranked-on-ranked matchups. So, this weekend we have Washington State taking on UCLA. I believe it's going to be at UCLA. I actually don't know this, which is quite embarrassing of me, but Washington State is taking on UCLA. I actually forgot to go over the top 25 for this week. So let's go over the top 25 before I get into the ranked-on-ranked matchup. So 25 through 21. So 25 is Marquette. Number 24 is Washington State. Number 23 is Michigan. Number 22, Western Kentucky. And number 21 is San Diego. 20 through 16. 20 is Pitt. 19 is Creighton. Number 18 is UCLA, despite losing to Oregon in straight sets this past weekend. 17 is Georgia Tech. And 16 is Missouri. 15 through 11. 15 is Notre Dame. 14 is BYU. 13 is Purdue. 12 is Louisville, and 11 is Washington. Again, something I don't understand is why is Louisville ranked ahead of Notre Dame when Notre Dame beat Louisville? And also, Louisville has more losses than Notre Dame, so this is very confusing. All will be answered when Louisville and Notre Dame face one another. I digress, though. Anyway, 10 through 6. 10, Florida. 9, Penn State. 8, Utah. 7, Stanford, and 6, Minnesota. Now 5 through 1. Number 5 is Baylor. Number 4, Nebraska. Number 3, Kentucky. Number 2 is Texas. And rounding up the top spot for this week's coaches poll is Wisconsin. They are your number 1 team for this week yet again, and it comes to no one's surprise. All right, so now for UCLA Washington State. So UCLA is coming off of a loss to Oregon, while Washington State is coming off of 2 wins against Arizona State. And the thing about Washington State and UCLA is that both of their one losses came against Oregon, which is kind of funny. So UCLA this year is led by Mac May, who has 69 kills, and she also has 22 digs. Elon McCall has 33 kills, along with Allison Jacobs, who has 33 kills. Something about McCall is that she only has 5 hitting errors on the year for a hitting percentage of 341, which is pretty cool. And then Jacobs has 33 kills. Iman Endai and Emily Ryan each have 30 kills. And in terms of assists, Kate Lane has 83 assists, Devin Chang has 84 assists, and Zoe Fleck chips in 23 assists as well. In terms of service aces, their only service ace leader is Mac May, who has only 4 service aces, but it's still early in the year, so I digress. In terms of digs, they are led by Zoe Fleck, who has 62 digs. Fun fact about Zoe Fleck is that she actually is a transfer from UC Santa Barbara, so nice pickup right there. Devin Chang also has 40 digs. Allison Jacobs has 31 digs, and Mac Bang has 22 digs. In terms of blocking, they are led by Emily Ryan, who has 20 blocks, while Iman Endai has 12 blocks as well. As a team, UCLA is hitting a grand total of 269 while holding their opponents to 198. And like I said, UCLA is 3-1 on the season, as their first 2 wins came against Cal at home, and then their one loss came against Oregon at Oregon, and then their other win came against Oregon on the road. So that's some good stuff right there. And as UCLA will be playing at Washington State, so I'm sorry if I said UCLA will be playing at UCLA, but Washington State and UCLA are facing each other at Washington State. So yeah, there's that. So as for Washington State, oh, by the way, but to wrap up on UCLA, UCLA has 3 seniors, 7 juniors, 3 sophomores, and 7 freshmen. So this is a mixture of experienced and inexperienced for the Bruins. So now for Washington State. So Washington State is led by Juliana Dalton, who has 53 kills, while Pia Timmer has 52 kills, and she has 52 digs. Magda Jalarova has 38 kills, while Kyla Williams has 36 kills on the year as well. In terms of assists, they are led by Hannah Pukis, who has 165 assists, while Aria McComber has 20 assists. In terms of service aces, Penny Tusa has 7 aces, while Hannah Pukis has 6 service aces. In terms of digs, they are led by Aria McComber, who has 54 digs, while Timmer has 52 digs. In terms of blocks, they are led by Kalia Williams, who has 20 blocks, while Juliana Dalton and Magda Jelarova have 20 blocks. So they're not too far behind. As a team, Washington State is only hitting 189, but they're holding their opponents to 169. So there's that. Washington has one senior, 1 junior, 7 sophomores, and 8 freshmen. So this Washington State team is very young this year. Washington State has, like I said, they have 1 junior and 1 senior. The 15 players are freshmen and sophomores. So that's a very young team that Washington State has. So one may think, oh, UCLA is going to steamroll Washington State, right? I don't know. After what transpired this past weekend against Oregon, I'm not so sure if it'll be an easy matchup. While Washington State is very young, I think they can hold their own against UCLA, but it's going to be tough for the Cougars to beat the Bruins. I personally think UCLA is going to take both matches, and they kind of need to, because if UCLA wants to have any hope of winning the Pac-12 and keeping up with teams like Washington, Utah, and Stanford, they're going to need as many wins as possible, because if they don't play their cards right, they could be left out of the NCAA tournament too, because, again, 48 teams, 18 at-larges, and unless UCLA can win the Pac-12 tournament, which I highly doubt, I don't see UCLA winning the Pac-12. I just see them being an at-large team at best. So yeah, I predict UCLA takes both matchups against Washington State. If I'm wrong, I will be eating lots of crow. So don't disappoint me, UCLA. I mean, UCLA is just too good of a team to just lose on the road. I know Washington State's okay, but they're not that great. Anyway, now let's go into our second matchup of the week, our second noteworthy matchup to watch for. It is number 17 Missouri it's number 16 Missouri. Yeah, number 16 Missouri at number 10 Florida. Both teams are 8-2 in the SEC behind Kentucky, who is a perfect 10-0 after they dominated against Arkansas. So here's the thing about Missouri. Let's go with the away team first. Missouri has 3 juniors, 3 seniors, 5 sophomores, and 3 freshmen. Missouri is led by Kylie DeBerg, who has 194 kills and 89 digs, which is second on the team in terms of the dig category, and the 194 kills lead the Tigers. Anna Dixon has 144 kills, which is second on the team, which that's pretty much their only triple-digit kill leaders, as the next kill leader is Dariana Hollingsworth, who has 59 kills on the season as well. In terms of assists, Andrea Fuentes has 326 assists, while Jaden Newsom has 94 assists. Looks like Missouri's kind of running a 6-2 offense. They're kind of not. It all depends. I digress, though. In terms of service aces, Kylie DeBerg leads the team in service aces with 21 service aces. DeBerg, fun fact about Kylie DeBerg, she actually had 8 service aces in one match. That is a lot right there. I believe that is the program record for service aces in a match. So that's some big stuff from Kylie right there. In terms of digs, Emily Brown leads Missouri in digs with 140, while DeBerg is second in digs with 89. And Fuentes is third in digs with 63, which is cool. In terms of overall blocks, Claudia Dillon has 26 blocks, while Kylie DeBerg has 22 blocks. While the third block leader is Kenna Sauer, who has 18 blocks. As a team, Missouri is hitting 276. God, why can't that get out? Anyway, Missouri is hitting 276 while their opponents are hitting 245 against them. So, God, that was a little difficult to get that out of. Oh, well. As for the Florida game... as for the Florida Gators, I already said, I already broke down Missouri's class that they have on their team. So, Florida is led by, surprisingly not Thayer Hall. They are led by Tara Caesar, who has 132 kills, while she has 85 digs. Thayer Hall is second on the team in kills with 120, which is actually quite impressive. I didn't think Florida would have Thayer Hall as their second kill leader. That's what makes Florida a dangerous team. And Larry B says Cal Baptist beat Tarleton State 3-1. Good job to Cal Baptist, as they registered their third win of the year, or was it their second? Either way, they're 2-0 in Western Athletic Conference play. So good stuff on their part. Back to Florida. Holly Carlton also has 80 digs, which is third on the team. And that's about it in terms of kill leaders. Their fourth kill leader is Marley Monserez, who has 25 kills, but that's about it. Monserez also leads the team in assists with 344, so good stuff on her part. She's chipping in assists while getting kills. In terms of service aces, they are led by Tara Caesar, who has 10 service aces, which is pretty darn impressive. In terms of digs, they are led by Paula Kriame, who has 105 digs. Ellie McKissock has 90 digs. Tara Caesar has 85 digs. And Marley Monserez has 82 digs. So that's good right there. In terms of blocks overall, they are led by Lauren Dooley, who has 45 blocks, while Nettie Okamore has 34 blocks, while Marley Monserez has 21 blocks, and Tara Caesar has 18 blocks. As a team, Florida is hitting 274, while they're holding their opponents to a hitting percentage of 157. So that's some good stuff right there. So I'm quite impressed with how Florida has done offensively and defensively. So here's my little verdict on Florida and Missouri. So this is an important series for both those teams. Both those teams trail Kentucky by 2 big games, or 2 big matches. In terms of probably catching up to Kentucky, Missouri is kind of out of that category because they've lost to Kentucky twice already early in the season. And then Florida has yet to play Kentucky, but that's not going to be for a while right now. So for Kentucky to have, not Kentucky, for Missouri to have any hope to win the SEC, they're going to need to run the table, and then they're going to need to get a lot of help along the way. For Florida to have any hope of winning the SEC, because they've already lost 2 matches. They lost to South Carolina in 5 sets, which they were absolutely abysmal when they kept losing those sets. And then they lost to Georgia in 4 sets before the fall finale, which was also disappointing. So, in terms of Florida, they are they are also behind, and they also need to run the table, which would also mean beating Kentucky along the way, because if they don't beat Kentucky, there's no way they win the SEC. And if Florida loses anywhere along the way, I don't see Florida winning the SEC too, because the way Kentucky's beating everybody, I don't think anyone is going to challenge Kentucky. The only teams that I could think of that can challenge Kentucky is Florida, maybe Texas A&M, but we already know how I feel about A&M, so there's that. So, in terms of Florida versus Missouri, alright, so Florida is a very good team. They obviously had that inconsistent matchup against Georgia and South Carolina, but here's the thing about Missouri. Missouri is kind of like the Minnesota Vikings the Minnesota Vikings / Kirk Cousins of the SEC. They do really well against subpar competition, but they don't do well against higher tier competition. The thing about Missouri is that they're actually undefeated in 5-set matches. They've actually gone 5 sets with Ole Miss. They won that one. LSU, which they won both of those, and they beat Arkansas in 5 sets. So, Missouri is 4-0 in 5-set matches, while Florida, I don't even think has only been the distance once, and they actually lost that one to South Carolina. So, here's my final verdict for Missouri and Florida. I think Florida wins both of these matchups. Why? Because I think Florida has more on the line than Missouri. Missouri can only get second place at best, unless, of course, Kentucky trips up along the way and then some. But Florida knows that they cannot afford to lose anywhere along the way. Because every match for them is now precious, especially when they get to Kentucky. And the thing about Missouri is that they had such an inconsistent week last week against LSU. I don't trust Missouri in this situation. I don't think Missouri can take down Florida. If they could barely beat LSU, I don't see them beating Florida on the road, mind you. Like, Florida's going to return to Gainesville. They're basically playing in the swamp. And that gymnasium alone is absolutely amazing. Like, I've never been in the Florida gymnasium, but I have seen how amazing their floor looks, and their special effects on their like when it comes to their lights and all that, and etc. 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 By the way, Florida has 4 seniors, 8 juniors, 0 sophomores, and 4 freshmen. So Florida is junior heavy, while they're balanced in terms of youth and full-on experience. This team is going to look really good next season, but this isn't next season, this is this season, so we can't look that far ahead. I'm going to say Florida takes both the matchups. I'm not sold on Missouri. I think Florida has a lot more to play for. Missouri is just playing for second place, and just to make their strength of schedule and their resume look good to possibly get an at-large spot. So there's that. All right, now for the last matchup to preview. Then I'll close the book on the women's volleyball week for this week. It's going to be Purdue at Minnesota. I believe it's Purdue at Minnesota. Let me just double check, but I'm almost certain it's going to be Purdue at Minnesota. No, it's actually Minnesota at Purdue. I'm sorry, y'all. But yeah, Minnesota at Purdue. It's number 6 Minnesota at number 13 Purdue, and that's going to be a very fun match. So here's the thing about Minnesota stats. Their statistics aren't fully updated, and I'm very disappointed. The nerve of you Minnesota statistics people. How dare you not update your statistics? I am livid. When I saw those statistics and I accidentally hit print and I was unable to cancel it, I was like, wait a minute. They haven't updated their stats? The nerve of you, Minnesota. I'm sorry, Marcus, but I gotta say it. The nerve of you, Minnesota, for not updating your stats. The nerve of you. I'm sorry, but as far as I'm concerned, I want to give a darn good preview on Minnesota, but I will just say this. Bad Minnesota for not updating your stats. The nerve of you. Anyway, as for Minnesota... By the way, I do apologize, Marcus, for kind of borrowing your catchphrase. Anyway, as for Minnesota, they have 4 seniors on their team, 4 juniors on their team, 3 sophomores on their team, and 3 freshmen on their team. So they are very balanced. Players to watch for this weekend are Reagan Pittman, Adana Rollins, Stephanie Semetti, Taylor Landfair, Milani Schaffmaster, CC McGraw, and that's it. And I guess Stephanie Semetti as well. But I already said her name. But either way, those are my players to watch for. Unfortunately, their stats aren't updated, so their stats are not 100% accurate. I'd rather be accurate than not really incorrect. You know what I mean? Alright, so anyway, as for Purdue. So Purdue on their team has 2 seniors, 5 juniors, 5 sophomores, and 5 freshmen. And I actually previewed Purdue earlier in the season. So Purdue is led by Caitlin Newton, who has 39 kills, while Jael Johnson has 31 kills. Maddie Chin has 21 kills, and Taylor Trammell has 20 kills as well. And Emma Ellis has 21 kills as well. In terms of assists, they are led by Haley Bush, who has 119 assists. And one of her kill attempts was absolutely amazing, as she actually faked the assist, and she found an empty square on the opponent's side of the floor inbounds, and she basically got the kill, and she really caught Iowa off guard. So that was some good stuff. Good stuff. Sneaky, sneaky Haley Bush. In terms of service aces, they are led by Caitlin Newton, who has 9 service aces. They only have 17 as a team, so the fact that Caitlin has 9 of them things is pretty cool. And in terms of digs, they are led by Marissa Homung, who has 32 digs, while Haley Bush has 28 digs, and Maddie Schemmerhorn has 26 digs. Actually, Jenna Otek leads the team in digs with 42 digs, while Marissa Hornung has 32 digs, along with Haley Bush having 28, Maddie Schemmerhorn having 26, and Caitlin Newton having 14. In terms of blocks, they are led by Taylor Trammell, who has 12 on the season. She is their only double-digit blocker, as their next block leader is Emma Ellis, who has 7 blocks. As a team, they are hitting .241, while their opponents are hitting .253. Granted, their first 2 opponents were against Wisconsin. We'll give Purdue a pass for that first week. But other than that, we can't really be too nice to them. But it's always tough to go on the road to play Wisconsin, which is the reigning Big Ten champions. So here's my thing about Purdue and Minnesota. So Purdue obviously is the underdog, but consider this about Minnesota. Minnesota's wins are not overly impressive. Looking at their schedule, their only 2 wins are against Michigan State and Maryland, both of which are a combined 0-8 on the season. So So Minnesota's wins aren't too impressive. As for Purdue, their 2 wins are against Iowa, which just picked up its first win of the season last weekend against Rutgers, while their 2 losses, again, are to Wisconsin, and then they also beat Illinois, or they beat Iowa. Iowa lost to Illinois. So so Illinois is theoretically 0-4. So basically both teams' wins are pretty subpar, if you ask me. I always get Iowa and Indiana mixed up, which bad, Teran. But the bottom line is for Purdue and Minnesota, I think this is going to be a true test for Minnesota. Minnesota has a lot of pressure on them because they know in order to win the Big Ten, they cannot afford to lose too many matches along the way. For Purdue, if they want to make the NCAA tournament, because the Big 12 is going to have a plethora of teams that could possibly make it as an at-large team. As we all know, Wisconsin's going to be winning the Big Ten this year. But if Purdue wants to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team, they're going to need a couple impressive wins along the way. They were unable to get them against Wisconsin, but I think this week Purdue takes at least 1 win off of Minnesota this week. I think Purdue and Minnesota split their matchups with one another. Do I think it's possible for Purdue to win? Of course. Do I think Minnesota can still win the Big Ten? Obviously. I definitely think Minnesota has a good shot. My only qualm with Minnesota is that I don't think they're the second best team in the Big Ten, as I think that is occupied by Nebraska. I think Nebraska is probably the second best team in the Big Ten Conference. So there's that right there. So my prediction is Minnesota and Purdue split their series this week. So that's pretty much my predictions and my previews for this week's matchup for the NCAA Women's Volleyball matches for this week. We're going to go briefly into men's volleyball. I actually did see on Friday, I saw UCLA and Grand Canyon face off against one another. I saw it on a live stream. Big shout out to UCLA for providing the live stream. I was very happy that they provided a live stream, and I couldn't believe it. So, good stuff right there. So, as for the UCLA Grand Canyon matchup, I was actually pretty disappointed at Grand Canyon. UCLA swept Grand Canyon, and I was like, come on, man. Now, I will give Grand Canyon the benefit of the doubt. They didn't have their standout player, Camden Gianni. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know why he didn't play, but he played the next night. But I was very disappointed that UCLA swept Grand Canyon. I'm obviously happy for UCLA, but I expected better from Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is the number 10 team in the coaches poll, while UCLA is not too far ahead of them as they are number 9. I expected Grand Canyon to take 1 set off of the Bruins. I know they were playing at UCLA, but there were no people in the stands. It didn't make that big of a difference. I think UCLA kind of, I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but they kind of got off a little easy, but I digress. So I think UCLA, I wasn't quite impressed with UCLA. They do not have Danon Gimia, however his last name is pronounced. I think it's pronounced Gayama. Either way, they didn't have Danon, but they really stepped up as players like Cole Ketrazinski stepped up, and Austin Matawatia stepped up in terms of kills and whatnot. And Sam Coburn did a great job at setter, and Cole Pender did a great job at libero as well. So overall, I was very disappointed in Grand Canyon. They actually had a couple of chances to pull ahead of UCLA in set 1 and set 3, but they didn't. And those are actually their best chances of taking the match. But unfortunately, that was not the case, and Grand Canyon fell to UCLA. But then Grand Canyon beat Concordia of Irvine the day after. But that match was far from easy. Grand Canyon did sweep the Eagles, but all of those matches went past 25. So, good for you, Grand Canyon. Kudos. But now for the matchup that really caught my eye. So this was actually against New Jersey Institute of Technology, or NJIT, and they took on number 4 Lewis at the De Gaulle Arena in Loretto, Pennsylvania. So I actually was going out to brunch with my brother when I first saw this matchup, and I saw that NJIT took the first set 25-23, and I'm like, okay, pretty cool. NJIT took the first set. I wonder if they could actually make something of it. And then NJIT took the second set 25-15, and I'm like, oh my. It looks like we may have an upset on our hands. Third set, Lewis took set 3 25-19 as Lewis finally woke up. Now the fourth set was very interesting. So it looked as if it was going to be neck and neck as NJIT and Lewis kept trading points. NJIT eventually found its opening, and they went up by 3, like midway through the set. They eventually went up 23-19, and I was looking at the stats, or looking at the play-by-play, and I'm like, oh, it's going to happen. NJIT is going to pull off the upset against Lewis. Well, I'll be able to dance all over Lewis and say, you guys, you lost. Ha, ha, ha. And that's what everyone's thinking, because you're up 23-19. You have a very good chance of winning the match, or the set. Unfortunately, Lewis had other plans. As Lewis scored 4 straight points, they actually dodged an NJIT match point, and they wound up winning set 4 27-25, and I'm like, no, NJIT, you're not supposed to lose that set. Come on, man. So set 5 was quite interesting. Lewis led 9-6 at one point. NJIT tied it at 9-9. Both teams eventually were tied at 12-12. But unfortunately for NJIT, Lewis scored the next 3 points, won the 5th set 15-12, denying NJIT of its upset bid while escaping with the 5-set victory. And I was like, no! We wanted to see an upset. We wanted to see a top 5 upset. If we weren't going to get a top 5 upset in women's volleyball, we should have gotten it in men's volleyball. Oh, no. Oh, no, Lewis. Oh, no. Why do you gotta ruin the fun, Lewis? Anyway, Lewis was led by Ryan Conan, who needs no introduction. He had 23 kills, only 3 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .556. That was a big reason that Lewis won. If Ryan Conan did not post those numbers, Lewis loses this match anyway and every way. Tyler Mitchum also chipped in 12 kills, while TJ Murray had 10 kills, and Landon Krause had 8 kills as well. Kevin Calling had 48 assists and chipped in 5 kills on 6 attempts, which is actually pretty good. In terms of service aces, surprisingly, Lewis only had 3 service aces, and they missed 16 serves, so it's any wonder Lewis was struggling all day. All 3 of Lewis's aces came from Ryan Conan. In terms of blocks, Lewis had a grand total of 15 blocks, and they had 41 digs, and they hit .268 for the match. So that's some good stuff right there. So good job, Lewis. Obviously, we all wanted to see the upset, but we can't go wrong with you pulling out the win. Now for NJIT. Before I get into their stats, I just gotta say, I was quite impressed with NJIT. They really performed well. This was only their second match of the season, and this was only their first week of the season. And NJIT almost pulled off a victory over the number 4 team in the country. Unfortunately, it was just not enough, and NJIT lost. But NJIT has nothing to hang their heads over. They have a lot to be proud of, and they're going to use this matchup as motivation to continue to do better. So NJIT was led by Alvaro Gimeno, who had 20 kills, 9 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .256. Julian Meisner had 16 kills, 5 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .289. And Jens Feldthus had 9 kills, 4 hitting errors for a hitting percentage of .200. NJIT ran a 6-2 offense as Griffin Feiseler had 34 assists, while Zachary Hresko had 12 assists. In terms of aces, NJIT had 6 service aces but had 18 service errors, which is not going to get the job done. In terms of blocks, NJIT had 12 blocks, 7 of which were solo blocks, and NJIT had 42 digs. And as a team, NJIT hit .269, which was slightly better than Lewis, but it just wasn't enough to get the victory. And I feel bad for NJIT. I even said on my Twitter account, this was NJIT's second match of the season, their first week of their season, and the fact that they almost beat the number 4 team in the nation is quite impressive, and they need not hang their heads over this loss. So I think they deserve the big applause button. So as for the top 15 AVCA coaches polls, 15 through 11, number 15 is Ball State. Number 14, tied for number 13, is Loyola of Chicago and Concordia of Irvine. Number 12 is George Mason. Number 11 is Penn State. Number 10 through 6, number 10 is Grand Canyon. Number 9 is UC San Diego. Number 8 is UCLA. Number 7 is UC Irvine. Number 6 is Pepperdine. So now 5 through 1. So number 5 is Long Beach State, which has yet to play. Number 4 is UC Santa Barbara, which also has yet to play. Number 3 is Lewis, which went up a spot despite barely beating NJIT. Number 2 is Hawaii, which also has yet to play. And the number 1 team of the coaches poll for February 1st is BYU, which kicks off its season this weekend against UCLA. So that's going to be fun to see BYU finally take the court. We finally get to see the Cougars in action, and hopefully we'll get to see them pick up where they left off last year. Now that I mentioned the Big West schools, I actually have some news regarding the Big West Conference, and it's actually good news. The Big West Conference has approved all of the Big West spring sports to come back on February 15th, which is good news because that includes men's volleyball. So we will be getting Long Beach State, UC Santa Barbara, UC Irvine, Hawaii. All you get that what I mean. We're getting Big West men's volleyball. Okay, it's not that amazing, but still, it is quite amazing that we will be getting some Long Beach State volleyball, or at least I will, and also some UC Santa Barbara volleyball. I actually made note of this, and I made note of all of the Big West Conference teams except for Cal State Northridge. And someone said, you forgot Cal State Northridge. I will say this about Cal State Northridge. Yes, I forgot Cal State Northridge, but is Cal State Northridge in the top 15? A simple question deserves a simple answer. No. They're not even receiving votes. No offense to Cal State Northridge, but I don't see the Matadors winning a match this year in Big West Conference play. You look at the Big West Conference in men's volleyball. You have Hawaii, which is probably the favorite to win. You have UC Santa Barbara, which is drastically improved. Long Beach State, which is perennially good. UC Irvine, which is perennially up there. UC San Diego, which had a breakout year last year. On what planet do people think that Cal State Northridge will actually win a Big West Conference game? I just don't see it happening. I'm not trying to be a hater toward Cal State Northridge, and yes, I'm a Long Beach State student, but I will say this, Northridge is kind of the odd man out. I'm sorry, but they just are. Forgive me, Matador fans. I'm sorry. I'm so evil. But I'm truthful. So anyway, that's going to be it for the men's volleyball matches. Again, the noteworthy matchup this week is UCLA at BYU. I would say USC also plays, but unfortunately they don't because their matches got postponed, which really makes me sad face, but it is what it is. Like, they can't control it. So that's going to be it for the men's volleyball side of things. Now for the last part of the show, I am going to go over the NCAA Beach Volleyball rankings, or the preseason rankings, the top 20 preseason rankings. So let's go all the way down. Let's go 20 through 16. Number 20 is Arizona State. Number 19 is Stanford. Number 18 is Georgia State. Number 17 is Arizona. And number 16 is Long Beach State. So 15 through 11, number 15 is TCU, number 14 is South Carolina, number 13 is FIU, number 12 is FAU, and number 11 is Stetson. Numbers 10 through 6, number 10 is Pepperdine, number 9 is Cal, number 8 is Loyola Marymount, number 7 is Grand Canyon, and number 6 is Cal Poly. Now 5 through 1, number 5 is Hawaii, number 4, USC, number 3, Florida State, number 2, UCLA, and the number 1 team in the NCAA Beach Volleyball preseason rankings is LSU. Yes, the LSU Tigers are number 1. Ed Orgeron would be proud. Go Tigers. So there's your preseason top 20. There aren't any matches going on as of right now, but there will be soon. So it's going to be some fun times in NCAA beach volleyball. It's going to be a very busy time in terms of volleyball, as normally it would be just the men's volleyball season and the beach volleyball season. However, it is now NCAA women's volleyball season, NCAA men's volleyball season, and NCAA beach volleyball season going on this spring, which is really awesome. And that's not the best part. The best part is we also have Athletes Unlimited Pro women's volleyball, and then eventually we'll have the NVA relaunching as well. So this is going to be an exciting time for volleyball, because I also did promise you all some pro volleyball. And I also definitely want to give a shout out to last week's guest, Emily Eamon, who just got a new job with the Athletes Unlimited, as she is now the digital host for the inaugural 2021 season in Dallas. And she'll be on like a little Twitter / in-person hiatus, and she'll be focusing a lot on Athletes Unlimited Volleyball. So there is that, and we definitely want to give a shout out to Emily Eamon, and we are happy for you, and the whole IE Sports Radio family is happy for you. And thank you once again, Emily Eamon, for being a guest on Set Point. We greatly appreciate having you on, and we wish you nothing but the best going forward. But on that note, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode of Set Point. Before we go, let's give one more shout out to our sponsor, Legacy Financial. Last year was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're ever in a financial struggle at the moment, Legacy Financial is here for you. If you're doing well and want to get to the next level, you could also give them a call. And if you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give Io a call at 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Io and her husband Andrew are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow them on Twitter at legacy_uncut and on Instagram at SimsUncut. Our next sponsor for iSports Radio is Mom is Always Right Media. Are you feeling overwhelmed with school? Are those essays keeping you up at night? Don't lose sleep, just pick up the phone. Mom is Always Right Writing Agency will give you quality essays, and they'll always meet their deadlines. Sleep soundly knowing that they are on the job. For more information, call 626-653-3649. And also affiliated with Mom is Always Right Media is their podcast, It Goes Down in the PM. Make sure to check out the new episode of It Goes Down in the PM, brought to you by Mom is Always Right Media. And another podcast affiliated with Mom is Always Right Media is Coffee After Dark. Don't miss the next chapter of your favorite love story. Check out the Season 2 premiere of Coffee After Dark, brought to you by Mom is Always Right Media, where they will help you open your business from start to finish. And then our third and final sponsor for iSports Radio is the Sports Rundown. Are you a sports fan but have too much going on in your life these days to keep up with the 24/7 sports news cycle? Or maybe you are new to sports and want to understand the sports concepts better. If so, then the Sports Rundown is for you. They are a new podcast that gives you basic, professional, and collegiate sports news, stats, tidbits, and fun facts by the time you get to work, start that second cup of coffee, or finish walking the dog. Enough information to make you intelligent and dangerous while talking about current sporting events, and they will teach you something fun doing along the way, such as mascots, uniforms, history, feel-good stories, and sports rules. They even cover the Premier League, which is a soccer league. New episodes drop every Friday and Monday mornings, so come give them a listen. And like I said, you could follow iSports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at iSports Radio. You could also follow them and like them on Facebook by going to the search bar and typing up iSports Radio. And if you see their logo in white letters and a black background, that's the iSports Radio. Then you could also subscribe to them on YouTube, and you could also listen to iSports Radio shows on Apple Podcasts. Definitely do try to give us a 5-star rating, and also leave us a good review on Facebook, because it definitely helps us grow our brand, because we want to prove to everyone that we are for the people, by the people, and we're all just passionate sports fans that are willing to go above and beyond when it comes to our content. Also, you can listen to us on TuneIn, Spotify, SoundCloud, StreamYard, and you can also catch our shows on YouTube as well. And if you ever want to subscribe to us on YouTube, you just need to click the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications on new videos and the shows that go on YouTube as well. But on that note, that is going to do it for Set Point tonight. So, as I always say, well, actually, no, before we go, I just want to make note that this is actually my 75th episode of Set Point. I'm 3/4 of the way to 100 episodes. I don't even know what my 100th episode's gonna look like, honestly, because, well, my 50th episode had 2 guests. Like, my 100th episode's gonna need to go above and beyond. Like, holy moly. And that 100th episode is most likely gonna come in July, barring I keep everything together and I don't take any breaks or hiatuses or days off or weeks off. Either way, it is quite the honor to have 75 episodes in the books and to be 3/4 of the way to the century mark. It's quite astounding, because I didn't think this show would be overly that great, but I guess it's taken off and I'm doing something right. But I also do want to give a shout to Larry B. and Marcus in the chat room. Thank you, gentlemen, for tuning in and talking some volleyball and getting angry about how USC lost to Oregon State. It really is appreciative, and I really appreciate you two. Definitely check out Marcus's show, Gloves Off. That's going to be coming on in 10 minutes right now. But until then, it is time to drop the beat, as I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all once again for tuning in to Set Point. If you're listening on the live stream, I definitely appreciate you. If you're listening on the replay, I also appreciate you for tuning in. and taking time out of your day. I know we went by a little longer, but I'll probably be back to the standard 1 hour by next week. So once again, thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Definitely check out the rest of our shows and our lineups going on. Like I said, in 10 minutes, we'll have Mr. Marcus Great going live. For everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the day, and I will see you on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Have a great night, everybody.